All right. Hello, everybody. Looks like everybody is coming in and trickling in as we kick off the webinar. My name is Mitch Briggs. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at AdVarank. Before we get started, we want to welcome you all to the webinar that we're calling From Clicks to Customers. We're going to dive into a pretty interesting topic around what we call marketing attribution. So trying to figure out, as people come to your website and become customers, where did each of those come from and what's necessary to get that going and get that tracking. Our host today and our speaker is going to be Jason Zickler. He is the CEO and co-founder of AdVarank. He's going to be walking you through this topic. A few other housekeeping things. You'll notice there is a Q&A button at the bottom. So if you have any questions as you think of them or as we dive into this topic, feel free to ask those. I can answer some of those on the side, or towards the end, we can bring those up and discuss those as they come in. So I think it looks like a couple people still trickling in, which is great. So we will record this and send this to you afterwards. So don't feel too bad if you're missing a certain thing, but we'll be able to send this back out to you when we're ready. So without further ado, looking forward to diving in. Jason, take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone, and thanks, Mitch. My name is Jason Zickler, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of AdVarank. And like Mitch said, we're going to be talking about how to track ad clicks all the way through to rentals or tenants. So we're just going to jump in here. I've got a few dozen slides I'm going to run through, and then we can open it up for questions. Like Mitch said, we're going to be watching the Q&A feature in Zoom. So let us know if you have any questions along the way, and we'll see if we can get to them. So today's discussion is broken into 3 parts. We're going to talk about what attribution means and how to look at different ways to attribute advertising success. We're going to look at 3 main components or ingredients of attribution and how they all work together to tell the complete story of the customer journey. And I'll even show some examples of how real self-storage operators and investors set up attribution and manage it for their storage portfolio. So as I mentioned, I'm the CEO of AdVarank, and we focus on Google ad management and social media ad management. And the reason we're doing this webinar is that self-storage operators always ask us, how can I justify my online ad spend? They always say, I need proof for what's working and what's causing online rentals. And I need to know just what's working in general. They want to know if Google pay-per-click is better than SEO, if Facebook video ads are effective, or even if Spotify and YouTube actually bring in rentals. We all know that people start their self-storage journey online by opening a browser on their phone or their computer and start searching for something along the lines of storage near me. And operators want their storage facility to appear first for the user on the search results pages. So capturing the first click on the search results page leads to rentals and leads to reservations. Looking in the online rentals reports in the facility management software, operators want to know where each tenant first clicked so they can ultimately attribute what technique is creating the most rentals and generating the most revenue. And attribution is the key to answering these questions. It's how you attribute your paid advertising to the actual revenue that you get from rentals. So essentially, attribution is the process of figuring out what marketing efforts first led a visitor to ultimately make a reservation or a rental. The universe of attribution has several methods for studying this. Since self-storage is so demand-driven, you're going to find that first-click attribution works best. And just as it sounds, this is attributing success to the first ad a user clicks to begin their rental journey. There's a lot of other attribution models or methods. Some of them are called last click attribution. There's one called linear. There's another called time decay, and even position based. But these are all just different flavors and colors for how to attribute credit to your ads and your ad campaigns. For self-storage, you really need to focus on the first click attribution method for tracking effectiveness of paid ads. You also want to analyze the landing page where your ads send potential tenants. This is usually the self-storage location page for the facility that you're trying to fill. And finally, you need to look at your facility management or your FMS software as the ultimate source of truth for attribution. After all, this is where the tenant records are kept. So it makes sense to store the real data about what brought those tenants in. For self-storage, there are three ingredients or three components of attribution. You have ad platforms, you have websites and traffic or tracking, and you have facility management or FMS applications. And the art of attribution is really getting these three separate systems and sometimes even three separate vendors to talk to each other. It requires constant communication behind the scenes to actually make this work effectively. And the best way to show you how this works is to show you an actual example with a real self-storage online configuration that we've done. So today, we're going to talk about Avid Storage. This is Jesse and Jarrett, and they run the self-storage portfolio called Avid Storage. Avid has about 30 facilities, so you can imagine how difficult it is to justify ad spend versus SEO across multiple facilities, state lines, investor partnerships that make up each of these locations, et cetera. Jesse, on the left, he runs operations, and he cares mostly about his tenants, move-ins, occupancy. And Jarrett, on the other hand, he manages the financial performance of the portfolio and the value of the portfolio, and he even handles a lot of the investor relations for Avid. The main question Jesse had was, where are my move-ins coming from? I actually know Jesse really well, and he always asks, how do we get more of what is working to drive move-ins and drive occupancy? Is it Google? Is it social media? Is it our SEO consultant? And Jarrett, on the other hand, he always wants to know if his ad spend is working and paying off. Basically, Jarrett has to report to investors on different properties if Google is driving the most growth, or when to use social media paid advertising if he wants to accelerate occupancy growth or move-ins. And at the end of the day, these are the things that drive value. So the only way to answer these questions is to focus on what's called attribution. And so this is how we began the journey of optimizing the Avid online experience to be able to provide this for them. So here's how we did it for Avid, and here's how you can even do it too. So what does it take to get attribution working? It first starts with setting up your ads to have proper tracking information on each ad. And we do this with something called UTM parameters. We actually set these up for each ad campaign and for each, in this example, Avid storage facility. And let me go back one. Sorry about that. So most storage operators focus primarily on ad source, but we're able to use all kinds of different parameters in the query string. So in this example, the UTM parameter in this link down at the bottom is ad source that we're looking at. And you can actually see that it's populated with what's called Google PPC. So in this example, this is what we want to attribute to this ad when it's first clicked. The most popular UTM parameters are things like campaign, source, as this example shows. You can use medium, you can use one called term, and you can even use one called content. And for Avid, we're able to set up all these UTM codes or ad sources with any channel that we run paid ads on. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Yelp, X, the Google Display Network, TikTok, you name it. Right now, Avid focuses on Meta, X, the Google Display Network, of course, Google pay-per-click, and even Spotify. So when we run video ads, on Facebook feeds for Avid, the UTM parameter can be tied to ads running like you see here. The user doesn't even need to know that all this has been set up behind the scenes. These ads that you see here, these are the actual video ads that we run. They're the perfect little 1080 by 1080 squares, or what we call 1x1 ads. And again, the attribution data that we care about just shows up at the end of the URL string as Facebook ads. And we can even run ads for Avid on Instagram stories. So these are those tall, skinny ads that you see that are 9:16 aspect ratios. And again, the attribution data just shows up at the end of the URL string as Instagram ads. And we use this in the reporting if a user first clicks one of these animated or video ads and ultimately creates a reservation or a rental. So you kind of get the idea. The same UTM parameter can be tied to these horizontal widescreen 16:9 video ads that run on YouTube. And again, the attribution data just shows up at the end of the URL string as YouTube ads. So remember that there's other parameters we can use beyond just ad source to provide deeper insights. For Avid, and probably for most of you, we just want to see that paid ads that you're running and driving traffic to your website and what's generating the reservations and the rentals for your facilities. So to do that, we have to now focus on the handoff of these parameters to the facility pages on the website. And the facility page is where you drive all your advertising traffic to, so users can actually start the rental process. So setting up storage websites and facility pages is really where all the magic happens. Now that we're sending the information we want from the ads with UTMs, Avid needed a website that is ready to receive and capture all that tracking information. And tracking can be set up with tools like Google Analytics or even Facebook's tracking pixel. For this Avid example, all the advertising traffic is sent to the facility pages, and web tracking begins as soon as those users start to arrive to the website. Since Avid runs ads on Google Pay-Per-Click, Display, Meta, and Spotify, we want to be able to see which channel is going to generate the most reservations and rentals for Avid. So the site is set up with these little code snippets behind the scenes that listen to where the web traffic is coming from. We even use what are called cookies to keep track of where users are first clicking on our ads. This way, if the user leaves the website and comes back later, we know which ad on which channel first got their attention. And this is the way the ads talk, if you will, to the website and hand the anonymous user attribution data over to Avid. But remember, at this point, all users are anonymous. So to enhance Avid's campaign performance, we actually helped Avid install Metapixel and Google Analytics 4, or what's called GA4, as well on the website. And just as a quick explanation, Metapixel is a simple piece of tracking code that Avid put on the website that allowed them to measure the effectiveness of social media paid advertising by understanding the actions that people take on the website. And the coolest part of this is that with Metapixel, Avid can actually advertise their facility to people that have already visited the website and left. And this is called retargeting or remarketing. So we can run ads back on Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. If people have been on their website and left and later that night checked their smartphone and looked at Facebook or Instagram, we can retarget those individuals with ads. Metapixel is tailored for social media marketing. It's an excellent choice for Avid because they're so heavily invested in Facebook and Instagram advertising. On the other hand, GA4 is designed to offer a broader view of user behavior, making it a good choice for Avid since they really needed some detailed insights into the interactions. And just like with social media, GA4 offers Avid remarketing and retargeting options as well. And typically setting up these tracking capabilities, it requires a professional, but there's a huge amount of documentation online. if you want to explore it on your own first. It's really worth learning about how all this works just so you can get a good understanding of it. It's also worth exploring the privacy and compliance considerations that come along with this. And this is an area where maybe a professional could actually help you out. The main goal of all the advertising is to attract potential tenants to your website and guide them towards completing the reservation and the rental forms that are on your website. And we want to do this in as few clicks as possible. And as I said earlier, this is where all the real magic happens. The first click should be on the ad. When we serve the ad, we want the user's first click to be on the ad, and the second click should be on the submit button after they fill out the reservation and the rental form. So by submitting these forms, we gather all the necessary information about what are previously unknown visitors, and we want to effectively turn them into known tenants. So up until this point, we've successfully identified which ads grab their attention. We've tracked their clicks. We've directed them to the website. And we've even used this data to retarget them if we need to, if they left the website. And now it's simply a matter of capturing their final tenant details through the form submission. So think of the submit click as the trigger that sets off this chain reaction, allowing all these systems to seamlessly communicate and start to work together. And this really is the moment of truth that we've been all working towards. When the button is clicked on the form, the backend code springs into action, and it seams together or fuses together the tenant's information with the specific ad data that first caught their attention. And this creates a complete picture of the customer journey from the very first impression all the way to the signed lease. And now each tenant's record within the FMS becomes enriched with all this advertising attribution data. And you can actually see which ad source is connected with them, leading them to your website and ultimately getting them to submit a rental. And this is how you can justify your ad spend in a market. For Avid Storage, all this data is stored in what's called SSM Cloud. SSM Cloud is Avid's FMS choice for managing their storage portfolio and is treated as the ultimate source of truth for all this attribution data. So inside of SSM Cloud, the customer records are all appended with all the attribution data so they can report and analyze where customers appear to be coming from on their site. And now anytime a property manager wants to know where a tenant came from, it's all stored with the tenant record and can be found in the FMS. And all the ad source data can appear in SSM Cloud as well. So on the right of this slide, you see all these examples of ad source data, including sources that are not restricted to just paid ads. It's a full, complete list of all the different ways that tenants have actually come in. And all this data gets fused with the tenant record and stored in SSM Cloud. And this is gold for self-storage. Remember Jarrett at the beginning of the presentation, he can even run reports now comparing campaign effectiveness. So this is an example of an online rentals report in SSM Cloud with ad source data being tied to every tenant when he runs his standard online rentals reports. So he can pull these as PDF files. He can pull this data as Excel exports. It's actually really pretty cool. If I zoom in on this, you can see Google pay-per-click at the top right. You can see Google Organic. You can see Spotify ads. You can see Meta ads. Jarrett loves this stuff for compiling updates to his investors and managers and even helping to run management meetings. So to be real specific, here's the tech stack. Here's how this works for Avid. Avid runs ads on social media and on Google pay-per-click. And AdVarank helps set up the UTM codes and all the campaigns that run for each of the facilities. The AdVarank software even provides daily budget recommendations with our AI software, so Jesse can keep his budgets focused on facilities that need more move-ins and need more occupancy growth. And all the campaign activity is available in AdVerink Cloud on Jesse's smartphone or laptop in our browser application. It's called adverink.cloud. So Jesse can see all this every single day. On the other hand, Avid's source of truth is SSM Cloud. It's the application, it's the FMS. And this holds all the unit inventory, the online reports, most importantly, the attribution data that Jarrett uses for making decisions and running meetings. And finally, and maybe most importantly, the web tracking is all handled by a brand new product called SSM Web Platform that's powered by AdVerink. And this is a super cool product that integrates with SSM Cloud and provides fully optimized SEO content and pages, a lightweight content management system, and even facilitates the full lead to lease attribution experience. So it all starts with the FMS product, since this is the source of truth. Leads by AdSource are all stored in SSM Cloud in real time as rentals are completed. Attribution data with paid and even non-paid source data is stored. Online reports with multiple formats are all stored here. And even unit inventory that can be used to ultimately populate the website lives in the FMS product. AdVerink helps with all the campaign management and configuration for the ad platforms, the tracking codes, and we even offer a license to an application that assists in making adjustments to campaigns based on FMS data and advertising campaign performance data from Google. So essentially, it watches real-time demand around a facility and notifies operators every day with an opportunity to capture more tenants when there's a spike in demand, or maybe even when we can reduce ad spend and save money for the operator. AdVerink even has this cool AI forecasting model to determine the perfect time to run a paid social campaign. So AdVerink watches data from the FMS every single day, and if a facility appears to be stagnant, meaning occupancy is not going to budge by 1 or 2% over the next 6 weeks, a social boost or a 30-day ad campaign is recommended at the facility for the operator to consider. Web tracking is all handled by this new SSM web platform for Avid. All this advertising traffic drives straight to the facility landing page where users can see the unit inventory, and all the unit inventory is synced in real time with SSM Cloud. And even if an operator wants to add a new location to their portfolio and have it available online, it only takes about 30 seconds to pull the data into the website from SSM Cloud with just a few clicks. They don't need to open a support ticket. If all the data is already loaded in SSM Cloud, you can fill out a form in the SSM web platform and enter an SSM Cloud ID, and then it'll sync up for you. Operators now have the ability to even use a point-and-click web editor to manage the content on the website. And you can actually build pages from a library of blocks that help you visualize each page before you publish it. So you don't need to mess with an agency, and you don't need to open support tickets. You actually have online tools now, and you can do it yourself. All these page blocks that you're able to assemble, they're all SEO-ready elements. And you can arrange these, you can move these, copy these, paste these, and it makes SEO super easy for the operator. With the SSM web platform, you actually get a real-time SEO optimization score while you're actually building these page elements that's reminding you to use things like keywords and descriptions, H1 tags, etc. So once the page is fully optimized, you can just publish it with one click. And all these page blocks and all these forms are fully optimized for attribution. So tracking this lead to lease now is super simple. And even running reports in SSM Cloud to see what traffic is driving the most rentals is now possible. So again, for Avid, everything starts with SSM Cloud as the solution for the FMS. It's considered the source of truth for all the customer data and attribution. The new SSM web platform allows for fully customized websites to be integrated with SSM Cloud right out of the box. There's a point-and-click web editor, which is a huge time saver. And finally, AdVarank integrates with your FMS, runs 24/7, it crunches data, it alerts operators every day how the ad campaigns are performing, and even offers AI-powered recommendations based on real-time demand analysis directly from Google. So there's no need for monthly meetings anymore. Now you can actually have this data every single day. And it even comes with a little button that you can click if you want to accept the recommendations or if you want to make any modifications. Tim Springer, the president and founder of Avid Storage, he said he saw an immediate impact on their customer interactions and their overall efficiency. He actually called this whole configuration and specifically the web platform as a game changer for their business. A couple of weeks ago, we did an experiment and we made it possible for Tim to see precisely which units were rented by customers who discovered Avid Storage through just Google pay-per-click. And we saw 4 move-ins at 4 different locations. I think it was 2 in Texas and 2 in Florida that were directly traced back to pay-per-click ads. It was an ad spend of about $1,500. And it generated $7,000 in lifetime value for new customers. It was a 4x return on his ad spend. And at another location Tim was managing, we saw an 11.3% increase for the first time in 6 months. It was a facility that was in a decline, and we saw an 11.3% increase when running paid social ads. And the customer length of stay at this facility was 940 days, which is really long. And so that 11.3% increase amounted to about $220,000 in new customer value with an ad spend of about $4,000. So advertising works and attribution is the way to start and track it. We would love to help anyone out. If you have questions, we'd love to see if we can generate the same results. So thank you very much for your time. If you want to try any of these products or if you want to get a demo, you can let us know. We're going to go ahead and open it up for questions. I'm sure Mitch has a few from the Q&A. We're going to also follow up with a recording of the slides here. We'll have some PDFs and some links related to everything we talked about today. And if you want a demo of any of the AdVarank or SSM products, feel free to visit selfstoragemanager.com or advarank.ai/demo. So Mitch, do we have any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Jason, for taking us through that. Have one here from Chad that says, how does this process work if you're using storage or any other FMS for that matter? Do you have to have these, particular tech stack, or can this work with something like a storage?
Do you want to take that one or do you want me to?
I think that's a good one for you. I know you've been in different conversations on that one.
Fair. Yeah, so we are a storable partner and we are able to store attribution data in SiteLink and storage. There's not many integrations available in easy self-storage. So SiteLink and storage do allow for attribution data to be stored. But the point of this webinar was really to show that there's these 3 main ingredients or components or pillars that make up attribution. And so the question would be that middle layer, your web tracking capabilities. So whoever your web vendor is, we would just need to make sure that all the tracking codes are all set up. So when advertising traffic with those UTM codes hit your website, that the forms and that click event that occurs on the submit button can still pass all that with that tenant data into the FMS. And that is what we keep saying. That's where the magic has to happen. It has to be a website that's listening for that UTM data, those parameters to be passed, and then simply handing that over to the FMS. So it should be able to work with storage and SiteLink and several other FMS tools out there.
Yeah, I think one thing, it might be different from FMS to FMS of what that actual value is. Some people might call it Google PPC. Others might call it paid search. Whatever you set as that UTM parameter at the beginning needs to match how it's going to end up inside the software itself. Some allow you to set anything you want and it will pass through, but others are more strict that it has to match. So that's one thing to consider too, depending on the FMS you use, making sure that whatever they call it in their system, you should be calling it and using that as part of your UTM parameter, so that when that information gets passed, it recognizes it and you can see it. So yeah, thanks for that question, Chad.
Yeah,
We do have one about pricing. So how much does all this cost? I think
$1 million. Well, pricing is probably something we would need to talk about offline. I could say this, AdVarank as a tool ranges between $128 to like $330 a month per facility. And it just depends on what all services you need and what all your licenses are going to be. The SSM web platform is around $250 a month per facility, depending on what kinds of setup you might want to take advantage of. There might be a setup fee. And then on SSM Cloud, you would need to talk to SSM Cloud about that. It depends on what your conversion needs are and what you're currently using and what data you have to get migrated over. So there's a little bit more of a discussion there, but that's kind of the ballpark of a few of the pieces.
Awesome. Yeah, another one here. Around have we worked with sites? Have we worked with sites through Webflow and this process? So if that middle layer is Webflow, is there any issue there with attribution?
Well, not necessarily. It really depends on who your Webflow developer, engineer, designer is. I mean, this concept can actually work on WordPress websites, custom built websites, Wix websites. It just really depends on getting all the tracking code snippets that'll be applied to those forms to make sure it's listening for all that UTM, all those parameters to visit the form, and then how that's going to be packaged and sent to the FMS. So, I mean, with almost everything in technology, everything's possible. It just depends on how competent your partner is, or developer, or whoever that is building that web piece for you. But it should be possible.
Right. I think most modern web platforms allow you to put cookies and code on there that's what's doing the listening and the storing of information. That again, once that magic moment of the submit button happens, it pulls information from that cookie and matches it with the information, and that's where it maps into the FMS itself. So good question there. A couple more here. Let me look through this one. Okay, this is a good one. How does it work when the end user gets to my website, which has 6 locations to choose from, clicks rent now, and it takes them to the storage site? At that time, they leave my site and go to another site, which is where they would enter the actual information. So does that break any of the attribution, I think, is the question. If they're kind of leaving one website and technically going to a form that might sit on another domain, is there any kind of breaking that can happen there?
Well, yeah, that's exactly where it will break. And so you would need to make sure that every single click event that's occurring, it's all done in these click events, from the ad to the landing page on your website. And then if it's then opening up like a rental center or something where the rental reservations are occurring, you need to make sure it keeps passing at every click event along the way. So you would need to work with your web vendor, and then again with Storable regarding the storage piece to make sure all that can continue to jump through all those hoops.
Right.
And
Instead of just having it on your website, you have to make sure that
it
cookie
goes
or
to
that
the
code
form. Mhm.
is on both of those pieces of real estate, so that the session doesn't break and that all that stuff is able to talk to each other.
Yep.
Let's see. I think I have a few. Here's one that says, can this type of attribution work for non-advertising sources like SEO or kind of organic social media? Yeah, I think the answer is yes to that. I think one of Jason's slides had multiple different types of things. So anything you put inside that UTM parameter. So even if it's a regular post on Twitter and you have a link, you can set that link to have a parameter and pass that value. Um, any visitor that's coming to your site is going to be sending signals about where they came from. So if they came from an organic Google search, that will get captured by that cookie and pass through. So this is a great way to not just justify your advertising spend to see how that's come through all the way to a lease, but also the other organic methods. If people know your brand name and they search for you and find your website from Google, it's going to come through that as well. If that was the first touch or the first way that someone found out about you, you can track all kinds of things and break down your online rentals into different channels that way.
Yeah, the UTM parameter is technically called source. It gets synonymous with ad source a lot of time because everybody really wants to know about the paid advertising. They're putting so much money into running these campaigns with their ad spend, and that's why it typically gets converted into the phrase ad source. But it really is, like Mitch is saying, just the parameter is called source, and so it could be any source.
Yep. And it's important to note as well that this is still a fuzzy science in terms of true attribution, right? There's a lot of different theories or arguments, even in the marketing world, about how attribution should be really done. Is it the first thing they see? Is it the thing that made them actually fill out the form that you should give more credit to? There's people that have anonymous browsing and block things like this, so you're not going to be able to see where they came from. So it's never going to be 100% true, but this is just a huge step to get this type of information into your FMS so that you can see line by line where those online rentals are coming from. So it's been a game changer for a lot of those folks that we've worked with to be able to see this stuff a lot of times for the first time.
That's right.
A good question about, how is this different than what I see in my ad platforms where it might say conversions, or if I'm looking in Google Ads, I might see a conversion in there. What is the main difference there? Setting up conversions in my ad platforms versus in my, having that information in my FMS. I can take that one too. I think it's all about being more anonymous versus, having actual names and numbers and revenue value next to that. When that event happens on your website, it goes into your FMS, it actually echoes back and tells that the Google ad, hey, this person filled out a form, if you have that set up as a goal. And that helps train the Google ads that your Google ads are working. So you should do more of those things. So when that, magic event of the submission happens, two things really go out, signals can get sent. One, it sends it into the FMS, but it also echoes back to the ad platform. So if you were to log into your Google ads and see, hey, a conversion happened on this one ad, you're not going to be able to see who that was, what they actually rented, how long they've stayed, what was the money that was spent to rent that kind of particular unit. But you will be able to see that, one of those events happened and that echoes back. So that's kind of a baby step to see, are my ads bringing in rentals, yes or no? The next evolution of that is seeing it actually in your FMS to know the exact name and person and location that happened. Good question here about if you were to work with AdVarank, does AdVarank set up all the UTMs on your website, but not on the storage website that the tenant is taken to in order to finalize the rental or even gain the lead information? I think I understand the question there. Yeah, we can set up the UTM parameters for the ads themselves. And we can help work with your vendors to, you know, put in place what's necessary to pass those things. But we primarily focus on the ad management side of things. If you're using StoreEdge for your website, and FMS, we can help you with that and kind of guide you of what's required to get this all set up. Anything more on that, Jason?
No, perfect. Yep.
We just don't have the actual keys to get in there and do
Right.
it ourselves. But we can tell you what to ask for. Looks like those most of the questions. If you have any more,
Okay.
feel free to chat them in real quick, or again, we'll send out this recording here, and feel free to reach out to Jason or I and ask any questions or follow-ups. Again, if you go to adverank.ai/demo, that allows you to kind of book time with Jason on his calendar as well, and answer some of the more complex and custom questions around pricing and how things works. And just, we'd love to show you how the AdVerank platform works, as well as
Sure.
how we work with some of our different partners.
Great. Well said. Thanks everyone for your time.
Have a great day. Enjoy it.
Bye, everyone.